Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. No really overdrawn introductions for this video, so let's get right into the news. First, we're going to start off with something that is kind of good. The House passes long-sought $15 minimum wage legislation. House Democrats bridged internal differences to bring the bill to the floor, although it's not expected to advance the GOP-led Senate. House Democrats voted Thursday to lift the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, delivering a long-standing liberal priority that has become a rallying cry for 2020 Democratic presidential contenders. The bill, which passed 231 to 199, would raise the minimum wage gradually from its current level of $7.25 an hour until reaching $15 an hour by the year 2025. The legislation was amended earlier this week at urging of moderate Democrats to provide us for a slower 6-year phase-in instead of 5 years as originally envisioned. Well, you see, even they keep trying to ruin everything. But, I guess they were fair enough to be like, well, they could have just said, oh, let's make it $10 an hour. But they at least gave us a bone in that regard. Like, progressives, we fuck you all the time. Might as well let you actually get the minimum wage, but you're going to have to wait one more year. So yeah, unsurprisingly, it's not going to the Senate. Mitch McConnell has openly stated that he is not bringing this legislation to the Senate. Literally, he's just not bringing this to the Senate. At all. He's done this for, a lot of bills recently. A lot of the bills that people would actually want to see voted on. I think the Equality Act was one of the bills that he did this for. It's really weird. Dude, you're probably going to win in this bill voting anyway, so why bother not letting you vote on it? It's really weird because, again, I just don't really understand why he would just prevent the bill from going in. Well, I can tell you why, because who's going to stop him? There's really nothing else to it. People can cry all they want, but he has the power. It's weird because, again, he brought the Green New Deal into a vote, but he didn't, again, I kind of feel perplexed. Is he scared that this bill will actually win in the Senate? Because I don't think it will. So why bother? If you want the bill, if I were, it's kind of the same thing of those old Oregon Republicans that were like, yeah, I'm going to just leave so that this climate change bill can't be voted on because they knew they didn't have the votes. It's if you're going to let the bill die, let it die with fucking dignity. There's not much I can say in this regard because it's just weird. Okay, the next story is kind of a softball story. This isn't a big policy thing, but I'll make it into a big policy thing. 82-year-old House Democrat asks the squad if he can join. Representative Bill Pascrell could be the newest member of the House's squad after the 82-year-old congressman asked his freshman colleagues to be a part of the tight-knit group. Pascrell tweeted a request at Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, and Ilhan Omar after satirical outlet The Onion poked fun at him in a Tuesday story. Well, here's the thing. I'll just read you my tweet that explains why he won't be part of the squad. He voted for the Iraq War. That seems like a pretty good stopping point. Now, I know you might say, well, a lot of other people have voted for the Iraq War, and they might not be as bad as we say they are. Walter B. Jones voted for the Iraq War, and even progressive firebrand Ed Markey, I think, initially voted for the Iraq War. But I don't think he did, but possibly he did. No, I think Markey voted for the Patriot Act, but he didn't vote for the Iraq War. But, Bill Pascrell, he's not like, the progressives progressive. Like, I mean, I'm not saying, like, the squad has to be, like, all young ladies, but, I mean, you know, like, if you're going to be part of the squad, like, the quote-unquote squad, can you at least be progressive? Like, I mean, as far as I know, here's pretty much the only 2 stipulations in regards to the squad. You gotta be young, you gotta be progressive. Okay? And Pascal, he didn't even support, I'm looking now, he didn't even support HI 676 during its introductions. But anyways, like, back to the squad, the only 2 members of Congress I can truly think, like, fit both criteria to be in the squad, you know, being young and being progressive, there's really only 2 people who can fit that regard. Ro Khanna and Tulsi Gabbard. Everyone else, they don't meet maybe one of the new guys, like Joe Neguse, can be part of the squad. Because he's also young and he's also a pretty progressive member of Congress. But, I mean, most of the other people who there are a lot of people who fit the criteria of being progressive, but they don't necessarily fit the whole young requirement. But, you know, I wouldn't split hairs if Chuy Garcia was part of the squad. Like, I mean, going into the 160th Congress, my personal squad always added Chuy Garcia. Because, you know, Chuy is, you know, really progressive, and he was, like, the only other one that I endorsed that was a newcomer that won his election. I mean, aside from the aforementioned squad. And, you know, that's just how the cookie crumbles, because everybody loves to talk about the squad, but the squad always gets everybody to hate them because, you know, they actually have principles and an ideology instead of just, you know, doing whatever the corporate tools tell them to do. Okay, so here's an update on the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund, because I don't think I did a formal update in regards to the compensation fund. For starters, it passed the House, no duh, because it was pretty much inevitable to pass the House, but 12 people voted no. Representative John Rose, Representative Ralph Norman, Representative Thomas Massey, Congressman Heiss, Representative Andy Harris, Representative Gosar, Representative Cloud from Texas, Representative Ken Buck, Representative Mo Brooks, Representative Andy Briggs, Representatives Arrington, and, lo and behold, Independent Justin Amash. These are the guys who voted against it. And it was on its way to get unanimous consent in the Senate. I'll just read this part of the article, because this article kind of reveals who's the big party pooper. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand tried to win the Senate's consent to approve the House-passed bill, which would reauthorize the funding until fiscal year 2090. The bill cleared the House 402-12, but Rand Paul objected, pointing to the country's growing debt and arguing that any new spending should be offset by cuts to other spending. It has long been my feeling that we need to address our massive debt in this country, he said, and therefore any new spending should be offset by cutting spending that is less valuable. We need to, at the very least, have this debate. He added that if the House bill was brought up for a vote in the Senate, that he's planning to offer an amendment, but until then, I will object. A spokesperson for Paul later told The Hill that Paul is not blocking anything, adding that he is simply seeking to pay for it. Bitch, that's called blocking. You are... They are saying, can we vote now? And you're saying, no. You are blocking the bill. You're blocking the bill. And this flat out sucks, because you know what? Instead of me giving Rand Paul shit for this decision, let's hear what a 9/11 first responder has to say about Rand Paul's decision.
Listen, we're not surprised by Senator Lee and Paul. This is their MO. We kind of had an idea that this would happen, but if you watched yesterday when South Dakota Majority Whip Toon, he did a Rule 14 unanimous consent before Senator Gillibrand did her unanimous consent, and Mitch McConnell, he gave us his word, and he's been sincere about that, and we're confident when the bill goes on the floor for a straight up and down vote, Senator Lee and Senator Paul are going to lose, and any amendment they try to make, we have 73 co-sponsors. We have a 2/3 majority, and I don't think anything they have to offer holds water. But let's get to Rand Paul got $580,000 for broken ribs. We get $250,000 for cancer. Tom Wilson, who had tongue removed and his neck reconstructed, gets $250,000. He'll probably die from cancer. Luis Alvarez died from cancer. He got $250,000. So I think both of the senators, the people from the state of Kentucky and the people from the state of Utah deserve better.
Much better.
And I think they lack humanity.
A 9/11 first responder literally said that 2 members of the U.S. Senate lack humanity. And many people have pointed out the hypocrisy because Rand Paul has voted in favor of tax cuts for the rich. He's always a deficit hawk when it comes to helping people. Like, literally every Republican's like, I care about the deficit. The deficit is the most important thing in the world. And then all of a sudden, when it's their things that would require raising the deficit or anything, they're like, oh, no, this is fine. This is fine. This is fine. Totally fine. It's hypocrisy at the nth degree. And of course, he mentioned Mike Lee because Mike Lee is trying to be a bit of a between Rand Paul and the other senators. He's trying to be a bit of a midway guy. He's like, well, I'm not necessarily saying block the bill, and I'm not necessarily saying that I oppose the bill, but I'm just saying that it would probably be better if we, had a way to pay for it. If we had a way to pay for it, then everything would be fine. We wouldn't have to worry about any of these other things because we would have a way to pay for it. Everything is totally fine. Despite the fact that, you're literally blocking this bill from passing. And now many people are saying, like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because, they pretty much have the votes. They have 73 co-sponsors in the Senate. As far as I know, Rand Paul and Mike Lee are the only people who have actually expressed objections to the bill. So, yeah, they're probably going to lose this battle. So anyways, now let's move to a 2020 update. First, on the Republican side, Mark Sanford, South Carolina Republican, former U.S. Rep, considers presidential run against Trump. After almost a year after President Trump urged voters to reject Mark Sanford, the former South Carolina congressman is considering a Republican presidential run of his own against Donald Trump in 2020. Sanford, in an interview on the Tuesday with the Post and the Courier, confirmed that he will take the next month to formulate a potential run against Trump as a way to push the national debate about America's mounting debt, deficit, and government spending. He would run as a Republican. Sometimes in life, you gotta say what you gotta say, whether there's an audience or not, for the message. Sanford said, I feel convinced. If he does get in the race, Sanford faces a mammoth odds against getting any traction within the Republican Party. Hours after news broke of Sanford's possible presidential bid, he faced blunt condemnation from his own South Carolina Republican Party. The last time Mark Sanford had an idea this dumb, it killed his governorship. That makes about as much sense as a trip up the Appalachian Trail, SC GOP Chairman Drew McKissick said in an emailed statement. The South Carolina Democratic Party made a statement on this as well, saying, it's always nice to see a candidate with fewer extramarital affairs than the president. If I remember correctly, the South Carolina Republican Party gave their unequivocal endorsement to Trump and said that they're not going to hold a primary. Now, the GOP has been kind of lenient in that regard. They're saying, like, well, we'll hold a primary, but, we're putting all of our eggs in one basket. So, they pretty much know that they're supporting Trump, but they're kind of giving like, hey, we're open to a possible primary challenger. It's the same thing with like in the 2004 Republican primaries. There wasn't really like that many, candidates running against, George W. Bush. At least no big candidates. I mean, the biggest candidates that were running were Jack Feller, an actor from the cult film Billy Jack. and I mean, the guy who played Billy Jack, he wasn't even like an actual candidate. Like, he was running just because. There was also this guy called John Buchanan who was actually attempting to run for the Reform Party nomination. But I mean, that also didn't really do that hot. But the bigger thing was the eventual reveal of the second Democratic debates. The candidates have been officially revealed for the Democratic debates. And for some reason, Bernie Sanders is photoshopped to have a bigger nose. Probably to make him look unappealing or something, I don't know. But anyways, the 20 candidates have been officially revealed to be on the 2-night debate schedule. And, seated from left to right, here's how it goes. Night 1, again, seated from left to right, is Marianne Williamson, Tim Ryan, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Beto O'Rourke, John Hickenlooper, John Delaney, and Steve Bullock. On night 2, seated from left to right, will be Michael Bennet, Kirsten Gillibrand, Julian Castro, Cory Booker, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, Jay Inslee, and Bill de Blasio. There are some names that are, of course, obviously missing. Seth Moulton, Wayne Messam, Tom Steyer, Joe Sestak didn't qualify for the debates at all, but Mike Gravel made the donor threshold not that long ago, but again, did not qualify for the debate because he didn't meet the polling threshold. Now, of course, he wasn't offered as an option in a lot of polls, but, that didn't stop them from getting rid of Larry Lessig. They literally made a tweet saying, Mike Gravel got Lawrence Lessiged. Just imagine like that being a term now, Lawrence Lessiged. So yeah, I don't really have many big thoughts on the debates because, like, here's the thing. People have been hyping up like, oh, it's going to be Joe Biden versus Kamala Harris Part 2. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are finally going to go head to head. Like, they're finally going to show who's like the true progressive. And then CNN said, people are expecting Beto O'Rourke and Pete Buttigieg. People are like anticipating that. And I'm like, no, that's manufactured. Nobody gives a shit about either of them. But I mean, there's not really much I know too much about. Like, this field will 100% be this way or this way. I mean, I do have some, like, there's some thoughts that are obviously there, but I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a huge thing. Like, I mean, who do I think will ultimately be the winners? It's probably going to be Sanders and Harris, obviously. Like the last debates, those two are probably going to end up being the big winners. Originally, Warren would have been in a winner category, but, she's going up against the big boy, so, I mean, when you're going up against the OG, you're really stuck in that regard. If you only, like, that's the whole thing everybody's been hyping up. Even if, like, I mean, we probably know that they're not going to go against each other and, like, Warren, you are dumb, and I hate you. You didn't endorse me in 2016. There go, you're not a progressive. And I know Bill de Blasio's not on the stage, but fuck him too. Like he's not going to say that, but he's definitely going to show, like, he's the real deal, whereas Warren is not 100% the real deal. And now, we'll get into the smaller candidate of the day. Christine Powers. Christine Powers is a independent, I guess, progressive candidate. I know of her because she was on the official TYT Progressive Pledge. I'm not kidding. She was literally on the Progressive Pledge for, TYT. For those who don't know what that TYT Progressive Pledge is, it's a pledge to support, the basic economic things for, anybody. If you, basically saying, if you truly are progressive, you have to sign on to this. If you're not a progressive, don't sign it, but if you say you're progressive, then you're probably going to have to sign it because, if you don't, you're not a progressive, really. The signers are Marianne Williamson, Mike Gravel, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Ro Khanna, Justice Democrats, PCCC, Jamie Raskin, Saik Chaparati, the person that the DNC is trying to get fired, Cenk Uygur, Kyle Kulinski, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Anita Malik, Michaela Wilkes, Brianna Urbana, Christine Powers, Anna Kasparian, John Idarola, and Allison Hartson. Again, I'm so confused on how this is structured because Warren's listed as number 1, but she didn't sign on until after Bernie, AOC, Khanna, and Williamson, because Williamson was the first person to sign it. And apparently Ian Schlockman signed it, and he still hasn't been added on. I don't know if that means he truly didn't sign it or whatever. But I guess if she signed the Progressive Economic Pledge, she's probably a progressive, so that's pretty much all I got to say in that regard. Because here's the main topic of the video, which is the more pressing topic of the video. He is Carl Benjamin, better known by Sargon of Akkad. For those who don't know who Sargon of Akkad is, he is an anti-feminist British YouTuber who is a member of UKIP. That's pretty much what is the beginning part of it. It says here he began to grow prominence through the Gamergate controversy, during which he promoted a conspiracy theory that feminists were infiltrating video game research groups to influence game development according to a feminist agenda. Since Gamergate, his commentary has been largely devoted to promoting Brexit, criticizing political correctness, feminism, Islam, and identity politics. He's well known for his, he's kind of been seen as an anti-progressive. Again, his big thing is he is an anti-feminist YouTuber, the SJW stink and blah blah blah. That kind of jazz. I mean, it's really, really weird. He got popular because he kind of was seen as the left, because many people like Dave Rubin, they kind of approached it as oh, we're actually left-wingers who are trying to reform these problems with the left. We need to fix the problems with the left. And yet they only relentlessly criticize the left and then just deny the fact they're right-wingers even though they are. It's really weird. I don't know, Progressive, when he was on Progressive Voice, he said oh, I still consider myself a social democrat, but I just like supporting Trump because I like poning the libs. He was kind of like a George Galloway in some regards. He was an ally from across the pond who would support Bernie Sanders, and then one day he just decided, after the DNC WikiLeaks emails, he decided to support Donald Trump because, he's if it's going to be an anti-establishment left versus an if it's going to be a pro-establishment lefty versus an a anti-establishment right-winger, why wouldn't I? And he's also he has been described by Richard Spencer as a stepping off point for the alt-right. And now he's denounced the alt-right, but he said a lot of things that make it seem like he's alt-righty. For starters, there's the whole 9/11 truther thing that he was in his earlier career. And then there was, he's like, like, I think it's like the thing about, like, he says right here on Rational Wiki that he has peddled a lot of conspiracy theory stuff in other regards, not just 9/11. Like, he's one of the big fans of cultural Marxists are going to destroy the world, or blah blah blah. He mocks George Soros' conspiracy theories, yet has actually peddled them. He supports these right-wing people like Donald Trump, Marine Le Pen, and Theresa May. And he's joined UKIP, a far-right party in Britain. Like, it's perplexing me. Like, he keeps saying, like, oh no, I'm actually a social democrat and stuff. Oh, I'm classical liberal, or blah blah blah, or bullshit like that. And it's like, classical liberals don't join UKIP. Social democrats, they don't join UKIP. You know what party they do join? Labor. And yet you keep saying, like, Labor is evil and, like, bad, and it's cultural Marxists, and, you keep peddling this whole, like, immigration problem with the UK. And, I mean, the UK does have laxer immigration laws, but he's, like, goes, like, super, super deep into this, conspiratorial stuff that leads into his views on Brexit and a lot of other things. And, I mean, his views are, like, very shifting. Like, you can tell, like, when his, like, he has an ideology that's never consistent, like, really, ever. All that's really consistent is that the left is bad, but other aspects of the left can be good. Like, for example, here's a 2015 quote that he said on Black Lives Matter. I believe that there are lots of black guys who are unjustly shot. Even if I'm wrong, I think the black community feels that way. I think that they very much feel like they've been persecuted by the police in a lot of places, and I would be surprised if that feeling was misplaced. I think that dismissing their complaints as being utterly illegitimate is unfair, and I think that if you were in their position, you wouldn't want your complaints dismissed as illegitimate by some guy on a radio show. The problem is that there are people who are still protesting and are being ignored in favor of people who are causing all the trouble. And then in 2016, he did a complete 180 and said, the reality on the ground is that this is a black supremacist movement that is violent and dangerous and wants to kill police officers. This is the reality of what Black Lives Matter has done. Like, his ideology, it keeps, like, just shifting based on whatever's popular. If Black Lives Matter is popular, then he'll be like, oh, Black Lives Matter is good. If it's not popular, then it's not. Like, he'll say, oh no, Black Lives Matter is actually bad, and blah blah blah. It's not really consistent. Like, he's never consistent. And I mean, here's another thing, and like, he was well known for another thing. Like, in 2017, he appeared at a panel that Anita Sarkeesian was discussing online harassment, and then she singled him out, and was like, you're bad, you're evil. No, Sargon, go away. Sargon's like, I wasn't here to cause any trouble. I was just here to listen to you. I wanted to hear you. And then they were eventually like, and the people did investigations. They're like, I mean, it's not really that important. He just appeared at a panel. There's really nothing that is really that bad. Then, like, in December of 2018, he was banned from Patreon. He violated the site's rules on hate speech by using racial and homophobic slurs to degrade another individual, which is something he's known for doing. He said the N-word, he said the N-word very, very much, and said other words. But I mean, I don't necessarily think that should ban him from, Patreon. Like, Laura Southern, who literally went to a migrant boat and then tried to get them to not dock. That's banning material. But someone saying, oh, you're gay, I don't really think that's banning material, to be quite honest. And that, of course, led to a lot of right-wingers and, centrists or whatever, the intellectual dark web, or any right-leaning, libertarian kind of individuals like Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin to just, dip from Patreon and then go to Subscribestar or something, which was shown in an episode of Technocracy, a series made by Mr. Enter, a guy well known for, you don't know, because you probably don't know who he is. He's well known for being a cartoon reviewer who screams into a snowball mic about Family Guy and SpongeBob and whatever. But anyways, that's not the most, the biggest thing he's known for, aside from, just his YouTube career. He was well known for one thing that happened in 2019, it was after he joined UKIP. He decided that he was going to make a run for Parliament, run for the EU Parliament under the party of UKIP. And he was running in Southwest England, which was his constituency, and he was the second choice. Because for those of you who don't know how the EU Parliament works, the EU Parliament works like this. Your party, whatever it is you belong to, let's just say for the example I'm using Labour, the Labour Party, which is led by me, at least this specific branch of the Labour Party is led by me, and I have to pick candidates that will stand for the EU elections. Now, my constituency has 3 seats that are up for election. I will now choose 3 candidates that will stand in this election. So let's say me, Carl Pilkington, and Ricky Gervais. Those are the only Brits I remember. Let's just say these guys we're all running for the 3 seats in our constituency. Well, if we get enough votes, we can get a certain amount of seats. Say, for example, you only get, let's say the Brexit Party beats us in this district, and Labour only gets 1 seat. I would then sit in that seat because I was candidate number 1. But if we win 2 seats, me and Carl Pilkington will take the seats because he's candidate number 2. So Sargon was candidate number 2, and I don't even think his constituency won 1 seat for UKIP. Because UKIP overwhelmingly, doesn't work. Because the thing about each of these, Brexit is, of course, the big political issue in the UK right now. Even though the Conservative Party didn't back either option and gave each member its own, they said each of its members could pick whatever side of the Brexit issue that they wanted to stand for. Theresa May chose that she wanted to remain, whereas Boris Johnson was a huge advocate for leaving the EU. And, other parties were for and against, Labour was for Remain, GPEU was for Remain, the Liberal Democrats were for Remain, and I think the only other parties that were for Leave were, UKIP and, some, I think, I remember the Communist Party of Britain, the Marxist-Leninist version, not the other one, they were for leaving the EU. But the thing was, the Lexiteers, as the left-wing Brexit people call themselves, and the right-wing Brexiters, who just call themselves Brexiters, they didn't really have any, they wanted to find a way to unite, and the Brexit Party is seen as the kind of uniting thing, because UKIP kind of just went to super far right, whereas the Brexit Party officially is not, partisan. It's supposedly just, their only issue is Brexit. That's supposedly their only issue. Yet they have some tendencies to go to the right wing of the Brexit movement. And I mean, the biggest thing, I think, I remember one of their candidates was a member of the British Communist Party. So that's kind of their bone to the Lexiteers. But they chose to have they chose to have a former Tory member stand as one of their candidates as opposed to George Galloway in Peterborough, which, didn't end up doing well for them because they didn't win the Peterborough by-election. They ended up, not doing so hot. Well, actually, the Brexit Party's doing fine. They're doing completely fine right now. But here's the thing. His campaign is actually kind of notable because, as far as I know, he's the first official YouTuber to make a run for office. Joey Salads didn't choose to run until this year, and none of the political YouTubers like Nico House or Kyle Kalinske or Cenk Uygur or Anna Kasparian chose to even come close. But Sargon's campaign could be the stepping stone that actually gets some YouTubers to actually consider running. But maybe not. More than likely not. I highly doubt it. So the problem with him running was his entire internet history has been, completely out in the open. And when he's known for making edgy content on the internet, he won't get that many positive views in the, media. For example, a Labour Party politician named Jess Phillips said that she had a lot of rape threats. Benjamin responded with, "I wouldn't even rape you. Hashtag anti-rape threats. Hashtag feminism is cancer." He didn't apologize on the comments and actually decided to add on. It's a lot more empowering not to be controlled by jokes, he said. And he had made a joke. It's a joke in bad taste, but it's a joke. And in response to these accusations, dude, why are you piling on Jess Phillips for no reason? He said, "She's being a giant bitch by laughing about male suicide, so he was justified in being a giant dick back." And then everyone was like, "Wait, whoa, hold on, what?" I'm sorry, Mr. Akkad, you're gonna have to be a little more specific on that because we have literally no idea what you are talking about. And when they asked her about do you think male suicide is a serious issue? And Jess Phillips unsurprisingly said, yes. So again, we don't know exactly what Sargon's referring to, but that's his reason that he gave. Again, Sargon's just, this whole, I would say he's reactionary, but again, I'm not entirely sure about the term reactionary. His whole thing is about being a softer and less conservative version of Paul Joseph Watson, but there's pretty much nothing else to say about Sargon in that regard. So, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.